Our family seemed ideal on paper. My name is Lily Mitchell. Mom took great pride in her position at the tax service. She'd come home every evening with her briefcase full of paperwork, talking about promotions and pension plans. Dad worked for the city administration, but he never truly liked it. His entrepreneurial ideas would spill out on napkins during dinner. "Think about it, Sarah," he'd say with excitement gleaming in his eyes. "A complete network of niche retailers." Mom would cut him off before he could finish. "We have job security and good benefits, James. Why isn't that enough for you?" Back then, I didn't understand their arguments. To me, Dad's dreams seemed like fairy tales full of possibility. But Mom would just press her lips together and shake her head. Then came that night. While I played with my dolls, I heard Mom's voice piercing through the walls. "Oh, you got a loan. How irresponsible." Her voice trembled with anger. "What's the price, James?" "Please, I've done the research," Dad pleaded. "Do you even understand? Do you want us homeless?" I tiptoed to my door, peeking through a small crack to see Mom's face flushed with anger as she paced. "No matter how low you go, James, I won't follow you." The next morning, Dad was gone. Mom told me he'd started a business in a different city. He hadn't even said goodbye. Weeks turned into months. I knew Dad's business was succeeding from the way Mom looked at the alimony checks, her face twisted with a mixture of anger and resentment, but he never reached out to me. Mom threw herself even deeper into her work. With longer hours at the office, she hired Elena, a babysitter, to take care of me. "Your mother's working hard for you," Elena would explain whenever I asked why Mom was never home. But I knew better. Mom was avoiding me, the one who'd attest to Dad's success. She preferred her spreadsheets over facing me, his daughter. Sometimes I overheard her on the phone with friends. He made it work, but at what cost? He left his own daughter behind. Mom hadn't just pushed Dad away. She'd chosen stability over the unpredictability of his ambitions. And so I was caught in the middle of their broken marriage, watching as Dad built his empire from afar and Mom became even more isolated. In our otherwise colorless existence, Grandma Marion was the splash of color. Her warmth and energy filled the house whenever she visited, but even her presence sparked tension. "Sarah, look around," Grandma would say, gesturing to our empty house. "What have you done to this family? James is thriving, and you've driven everyone away. Are you proud?" "Mom, you have no right to judge my life choices." Mom's voice would cut like glass. "Stay out of my business." During these confrontations, I'd hide in my room, hearing every word. Grandma would sometimes come to me afterward, her eyes sad, but her smile warm. When I turned 7, Grandma enrolled me in Riverside Academy, a private school she thought would give me better opportunities. I don't think Mom minded. She was probably glad I'd be out of the house longer. As I grew older, I began to understand why Mom kept her distance. Anytime I showed enthusiasm for school or took the lead on a project, she'd give me that distant look. I was too much like my father, the man who had defied her and succeeded. Mom provided for me a roof, food, clean clothes, but there were no goodnight kisses, no hugs, no, "I love you." She took vacations and weekend trips with her colleagues, leaving me with Elena or Grandma. This felt normal to me until I went to Katie's birthday party. At one point, Katie accidentally spilled her juice, and I watched in shock as her mother rushed over laughing. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, hugging Katie and cleaning the mess. She kissed Katie on the forehead, telling her she loved her. I stood there like an anthropologist observing a foreign culture, stunned by this casual display of affection. That night, lying in bed, I imagined what it would be like to have a mother who hugged me, kissed me goodnight, who simply wanted to be with me. Things briefly changed when Mom started dating Robert. Every time he visited, he'd bring me small gifts, a toy, some chocolates. He seemed genuinely interested in my stories from school, laughing at my jokes. When they announced their engagement, I allowed myself to hope for a family like Katie's. But nothing changed. After the wedding, Mom remained as distant as ever. Then came the news of her pregnancy. "You're going to have a little sister," Robert announced with a wide smile. "Isn't that exciting?" Sophie was born when I was 8. The moment Mom held her, I saw her transform, but only for Sophie. She showered her with kisses, cuddled her endlessly, basking in the warmth she'd never shown me. Sophie got an excess of everything I'd been lacking my whole life. As Mom nuzzled Sophie's neck, she would remark, "Look at her tiny fingers. Aren't they perfect?" Standing in the doorway of the nursery, I would observe Mom lullaby singing Sophie to sleep, a sound I had never heard before. There were moments when the agony in my chest was unbearable. Her passion for Sophie begs the question, why not me? Is it because Sophie wasn't biologically related to Dad? Just because she failed to bring Mom's attention to her error? The last nail in the coffin was when Mom left her work to raise Sophie full-time. Here was a woman who rarely gave me any attention before, and now she was devoting her whole day to my half-sister. Still, she never had a moment to herself for me, no matter how much time she spent at home. She would continue, "Ella, your grandma is coming to get you," without raising her gaze from Sophie. Need to focus on the baby. The amount of time I spent at Grandma's place increased. There were moments when I would sob into my pillow as I questioned my mental health. For some reason, I just wasn't nice enough. Why doesn't Mom love me like she loves Sophie? A day came when I had to ask Grandma. Her voice was heavy with emotion as Grandma drew me near. "Oh, darling, it's true that some hurts that grown-ups carry about are unrelated to the ones they do harm to. It is unfair that your mother is taking her frustrations with your father out on you." It was like navigating a minefield in the years after Sophie was born. It was always a mystery when the next bomb would go off. When Sophie reached an age when she could comprehend the dynamics of her family, she had already mastered the art of terrifying accuracy and using them to her advantage. When I was 14 years old, the occurrences began to happen more frequently. My scientific project lay shredded on my desk when I woke up one morning. Unfortunately, she had already left the room by the time I wanted to admonish the mischievous little girl. "Mom," with tears falling from her eyes as she sprinted downstairs, "Lily destroyed my new dollhouse because she was jealous that Daddy bought it for me." That is not accurate. "Sophie, I spent the entire evening studying." Honesty is key. Looking at me, Mom's face became more stern. "Why is it that you can't help but place the blame on your sister every time? Leave the room. A 2-week suspension is in order." This became the norm for us. No matter what, Sophie would destroy it, stow Mom's jewels in my rucksack, or secretly deposit Robert's misplaced funds in my chamber. I tried to explain myself every time, but nobody would listen. "Mom, I saw her take your bracelet," Sophie would tell her mother, her voice betraying her genuine worry. "I didn't want to tell, but she's been stealing things." Robert would give me that disgusted expression. She was untrustworthy, and I knew it. Just like their father, both of them are deeply dishonest. I resisted at first. I would yell, weep, and implore them to believe me. Over time, though, I realized that protecting myself really made everything worse. As Sophie watched me get grounded, sent to my room, or had my allowance taken away, she watched with a slight grin on her face. While Robert and Mom were in bed, conversing one night, I overheard them. Their words floated in through the open door as I paused to gather up some washing in the hallway. "Why don't we just send her to live with your mother?" As Robert was explaining, "She's nothing but trouble." "Are you kidding?" Mother frowned. "Monthly, James pays alimony totaling $33,000. As a result, I am able to remain at home and take care of Sophie. That money will stop when Lily becomes 18. Until then, she must remain here." As I let go of the washing basket, the garments tumbled to the floor. Things started to fall into place at that point. She treated me more like a meal ticket than a kid. She kept me around just for the money from my dad. I laid in bed that night and plotted my move. My plan was to achieve outstanding grades, get into a prestigious university, and then leave this house for good. In an effort to spend as little time as possible at home, I began to spend more time at the library and to take more classes. See how she's behaving all prim and proper while she studies. Sophie would troll. You think you're better than us. I had lost interest, though. They were merely keeping track of the days until I could finally escape with every insult, false charge, and punishment. I took a page out of a prisoner's schedule and marked off the days till graduation on my calendar. I took my mother's expensive perfume quietly when Sophie took it and stashed the empty bottle in my room. I did not even attempt to protect myself when she stole money from Robert's wallet and stashed it in my coat pocket. In my mind, I had already left, counting down the days until I could make it true, so their comments couldn't harm me anymore. All the pieces fell into place on a Tuesday around the end of March in my senior year. The pungent odor of smoke assaulted my senses the second I opened our front door. Every beat ceased. I learned the hard way that anything might happen at any second while living here. I dashed to the basement in pursuit of the odor. My blood froze at the sight that met my eyes. In the corner, hunched over among the charred remains of newspapers and cardboard boxes, Sophie found herself. The small wildfire she had started was already licking at the wooden storage shelves, which was a very bad sign. "Sophie, are you insane?" I leaped forward while screaming, "You'll burn the house down." Sprang for her shoulders and wrenched her away from the flames, my mind racing. It was all over in an instant. She staggered backward, lost her footing, and extended her arm to save herself. The subsequent horrifying crack will remain with me always. Ah! As Sophie clenched her arm, her scream echoed around the room. "I was hurt by you. It was intentional, wasn't it?" As I frantically attempted to put out the residual flames, my hands trembling, I retrieved my phone and dialed Mom's number. "Mom, something went wrong. It hurts Sophie. Return home immediately." Following then, everything was a haze. Mom sprinted through the door, glanced at Sophie as she held her arm, and whisked her away to the emergency room without batting an eye. As the odor of smoke lingered on my clothing, I patiently waited for the axe to fall while seated on the stairs. Opposite Mom's frozen expression was Sophie's cast-bound arm when they reappeared many hours later. She stormed into my room and began rummaging through my belongings, tossing them into trash bags, and then she remained silent. "Please, Mom, allow me to explain," I pleaded. Sophie was in the basement, playing with fire. I was attempting to rescue her. "The one I can show you is—" "She told me everything?" Mom interrupted me, her voice quivering with anger. "You were so envious of her new school bag that you shoved her down the stairs. What you've been saying about her for weeks on end." "Oh, really? How? What on earth?" "It was on fire." With tears falling from her eyes, Sophie stood at the threshold of the room. "Give it up. You deliberately caused me pain. For as long as I can remember, you've despised me." "Leave," Mom said, pulling the suitcases toward the entrance. "Leave my house now, or I will contact the authorities to have you arrested for assault. In your opinion, who will they believe?" I could feel the veins in my face dripping dry. She had a point. Who would believe me when I told you about the events of the past that Sophie had meticulously planned? "I do need money as well," Mom said while laughing vehemently. "What is it? Money? Medical expenses for Sophie will be covered by the alimony your father has agreed to pay. And please, under no circumstances, approach him with a falsehood. I will report this assault to the police if you say anything. What kind of impression would that give to prospective students?" A poisonous aura of danger lingered in the air. Grasping my coat and one of the trash bags that held my possessions, I quavered in my palms. The remainder of my belongings were strewn across our front yard like storm debris. With the luggage trailing behind me, I stumbled my way to Grandma's house. As soon as she opened the door, a glance at my face conveyed all the necessary information. Studying and applying to colleges took up much of the following few months. On the big day of graduation, I sat with my fellow students and watched the procession go by. In spite of everything, I held out hope that I may see Mom's face among the spectators. I received my diploma with honors, but no one else was there save my proud grandma. My perseverance and strong academic performance allowed me to secure a full scholarship to attend the business school at State University. For 4 years, I was able to be myself and succeed without fear of retaliation or false allegations. My career in marketing began soon after I earned my bachelor's degree in business management. My escape from the misery of my childhood home deepened with each passing year as the 8 years whizzed by. Most significantly, I was at peace, had a prosperous profession, and lived in my own apartment. Despite my many challenges, my only relative, Grandma, was always there for me. Finally, I crossed paths with David. He splattered his latte all over me and me too as we literally bumped into each other at a coffee establishment. We were too embarrassed to get mad. Instead, we laughed it off. "Let me buy you a replacement coffee," offered the man, "and maybe a new blouse." After meeting over coffee, we went out to dinner, which sparked more dates, and before we knew it, we were engaged and making wedding plans. Grandma, who wept joyful tears the whole ceremony, was the only other person present besides us and the judge. Under her breath, she muttered, "You deserve this happiness, sweetheart," as we danced the mother-daughter routine that she had insisted. David was the proud owner of a thriving fast food franchise that extended all over the city. During dinner one night, he brought up the fact that he was struggling with supply chain management. An expert in analysis, he remarked, "Would you be open to joining me in the office? To keep an eye on our purchases, I could use the help of someone I trust." That opportunity was too good to pass up. At last, I could put my business acumen to work for a family company, ideally a strong one, based on mutual respect and trust. Patterns began to emerge within a few months of delving into the papers. There were a number of vendors who routinely overcharged and provided low-quality goods. Fresh Fields Produce stood out among the vendors. I made the comment, "David, look at these numbers," as I spread out reports across our dining table one evening. For vegetables that is barely passable, Fresh Fields has been charging us 40% more than market value. Additionally, have a look at these delivery records. Our inventory management is negatively impacted by their constant tardiness. David gave the reports his full attention. "My darling, this is absolutely stunning. The narrowness of our profit margins is understandable. I am immediately ending their contract." I explained, "I've already researched some alternatives," and then I pulled out additional paperwork. These 3 companies have better prices and quality ratings. A wave of pride washed over me as I witnessed David launch into the process of contacting potential new suppliers, collaborating, having faith in one another, and creating something substantial. This was the essence of a genuine partnership. I was in the middle of checking contracts with suppliers when my phone started buzzing from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment before responding. "Hello, Ella, it's Sophie." The grip on the phone grew tighter in my hand. After a decade of remaining silent, "This is it." "What do you want?" I spoke in a businesslike, impartial tone. "Our sister's unable to keep up. We should have coffee and chat because there's a lot on our minds." "No, that was a strong and conclusive word. Say what you need to say." Suddenly, Sophie's voice lost its artificial sweetness, and there was a pause. "All right. A major error is on the horizon for your hubby. My fiancé owns a business called Fresh Fields Produce." Everything fit together with a gruesome precision. "After 3 months of planning, Marcus and I will tie the knot," Sophie announced. We have been meticulously arranging every detail of this spectacular wedding, the location, the dress, the catering, for months. However, the profits from your husband's restaurant business are essential for covering the costs. The news seems so unbelievable to me. Are you telling me you've been deliberately overcharging our restaurants to fund your wedding? Stop being so arrogant, Sophie said with a snarl. Marcus merely made minor adjustments to the prices. Ella, this is essential. Reassure David that we should continue with our contract. Adjusted the prices? My voice was getting louder. Some of the stuff was almost spoiled when it came, and you're charging 40% more than the market rate for it. You are deceiving us. It's just business, my dear. You owe me money for all you did anyway. Everything I did? I interrupted her. So you're referring to the time you started a fire in the basement, which led to my eviction, or the years you secretly stored stolen goods in my room? Please just speak with David, Sophie insisted. Tell him to keep our contract. Or what? I dared to dream. Are you going to fabricate another story about me? No longer am I that timid little girl, Sophie. Stop trying to con my husband's business out of money for your fairy tale wedding. I won't assist you. Come up with a different plan to finance your cathedral. After saying, "You'll regret this," she spit out and severed the call. The next time my phone rang was 20 minutes later. She began, "Mom," without introduction. "Wow, you're really bold. In light of all that this family has accomplished for you?" I literally chuckled. Relatives? Check. Which one of your relatives? The one who falsely accused me of stealing. That person who dumped my dirty laundry into trash bags and left me on the street. Your sister is finally getting married and happy, and you're attempting to spoil everything. You ungrateful little. In what ways are you loyal? Loyalty. This time my voice was steady. Listen, Mom, I want to talk to you about loyalty. When I needed a mother, where were you, faithful and supportive? While Sophie was trying to frame me for stealing. How about that time I was sound asleep on Grandma's couch, and you decided to trust another fib from Sophie? You broke her arm. Mom yelled loudly. She was saved from certain death by my actions. In the basement, she was tinkering with flames. On the other hand, was that helpful detail lost on you? The truth, though, was never your desire, was it? You were only looking for reasons to despise me because I brought up memories of your dad. Don't you dare. No, you don't dare. I interrupted her. Nobody has the right to expect anything from me. Grandma is the only relative I have who truly cares for me. If Sophie and her fiancé are sincere, they will figure out a means to pay for the wedding. I refuse to stand by while they plunder my husband's company. I ended the call after that. I remember sitting in the living room with David that night, my hands encircling a cup of lukewarm tea. I filled him in on all the details of Sophie and Marcus's plan to overcharge our businesses in order to pay for their extravagant wedding. As he listened intently, David's expression darkened with each nuance. He leaned over and grabbed my hands as soon as I was done. My darling, simply terminating their contract won't do. I'm going to make sure that all of the local eatery owners are aware of what Fresh Fields Produce does for a living. Are you sure? Excuse me, I inquired. They'll probably try to cause trouble. A firm, let them try, came from David. They are engaging in fraud, not only unethical behavior. My business and my wife are both things that I fiercely guard. Throughout the subsequent 7 days, David disseminated the paperwork I had collected to other business owners in his network who own restaurants. There was an enormous and rapid reaction. Restaurants started terminating their agreements with Fresh Fields Produce one by one. Marcus's standing in the field plummeted. Mom called again shortly after. "This is getting out of hand," she growled. "You're destroying your sister's future out of spite." "Mother, no. That was caused by their own deceit." Threatening. "Well, let's see how you like being cut off completely." She spoke out. "This evening, I will be speaking with your grandma. Because of what you've done, you will not receive any inheritance." To be honest, I grinned. Just do it. Give Grandma a call. Everything was previously relayed to her last week. The other end of the line was silent. When I went on to say, "That's right, your threats, Sophie's fiancé's swindle, and their attempted blackmail were all brought up in my conversation with her. Plus, guess what? Already she has revised her will. I am her only descendant. Regarding the money, I couldn't care less. I am capable of creating my own future without taking advantage of anybody, unlike certain people." Before hanging up, Mom responded with a series of profanities. Time elapsed. I found out that Sophie's ideal wedding had been postponed via word of mouth. Nothing fancy like a cathedral, a designer clothing, or gourmet food. Instead, a little ceremony was held in City Hall between her and Marcus. Her big day and her fiancé's business were both ruined, and she apparently blamed me for it. Yet calmness was all I experienced. Defeating their deception was a first for me. I had never done it before. I was no longer swayed by their threats. Grandma had supper with us last week. She gave me a tight squeeze while we watched the sun go down in our garden. "You know, Ella," she remarked, "there are instances when the family into which you are born may not always be the greatest fit. In this place, you have created something very lovely, a faithful marriage, a trustworthy company, and a life of honesty. How proud I am of you." In spite of, or perhaps because of, the obstacles they had placed in my path, I stood here, taking stock of my life and the things I had created. Although Sophie and Mom may hold me responsible for their shortcomings, I am aware of the reality. The decisions they made, the lies they told, and the brutality they displayed ultimately led to their demise. My true family, founded on love, trust, and honesty, is now here. It's been my lifelong dream, and they will never be able to strip me of that.